5, I'd like to welcome everyone to the Joint Personnel Compensation and Ways and Means Committee meeting for Monday, May 18th. If we can just rise for the flag, Pledge of Allegiance. It's right behind you.
Chairman.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
God bless America.
Kelly, can I just get a roll call for the personnel compensation, then move on to Lee's after that?
Yes. Okay, Benton,
Here.
Fagion,
Here.
Lujan,
Present.
Riskevich. We know Paul's here. He's mute.
Yeah, here. I'm sorry, I was
There
muted.
you go. No problem. Sierra,
I'm here.
DeGanga,
Here.
Totel,
Here.
Vero.
Here.
Okay, Lee, you ready for yours?
Yes, Ways and Means, please, Kelly.
Sure. Anagnestakis,
He's got to
I know
unmute
he's-
himself.
yeah, he's probably on mute. Okay, Benelli,
Here.
Hines,
Here.
Kulisek,
Here.
Menuda,
Here.
Paduk,
Here.
Sutherland,
Here.
Benton,
Here.
and Anagnestakis one more time.
I'm here. I didn't
Okay,
get my
gotcha.
name, but I'm here.
Thank you. Okay, all present.
Okay,
very
great.
good.
Thank you.
On our agenda today, item number IA, we have a resolution creating a voluntary separation agreement for Orange County employees. I get a motion for the PNC, a second.
Mr.
motion.
Chairman, Mr. Kulisek here. Could you speak up or turn your microphone up or something? I can hear you.
Okay,
Chairman Stiganga will make that motion.
okay, thank you, Kathy.
Second. I'm seconding.
Is that Joel?
Lujan.
Oh, Kevin Darian, okay. And we do have Commissioner Steve Gross with us today. Lee, you want to run your motion in a second now as well?
Sure. Can I get a motion and second from Ways and Means Committee members?
Yeah, I'll move that, Mike Paduk.
I'll second it,
Cool.
Katie Benelli.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Well set.
I believe we have Commissioner Steve Gross on with us today as well. Just talk about the resolution for the voluntary separation agreement. We're going through extraordinary times right now, which means we have to resort to sometimes extraordinary measures.
Thank you, Chairman. Pleasure to be with everybody today in these circumstances. Yes, we're here today to talk about a couple things we'd like to do. Obviously we're in a position that nobody has ever been in before with the response to COVID-19 and the financial implications of that response. And we have some measures we'd like to put forward that we think will help to achieve some savings for taxpayers while taking actions that are in the best interest of our employees. So with that, I'd be happy to go into the first proposal, if that's what you like, Chairman.
Sure. It's pretty similar to the ones we offered in the past, I understand.
So Orange County in the past has offered 4 voluntary separation incentives. The first one was in 2014. At that point, we had 126 employees take advantage of the 2014 incentive. In 2015, we did one. We had 65 employees take advantage of that incentive. 2016, we had 66 employees take advantage. And the most recent one was 2017. We had 83 employees take advantage of the 2017 program. What we're looking to do right now is to model after those past programs that we did. So the conditions are substantially the same. What we're looking to do is offer for employees that have 10 up to 20 years of service, $10,000 incentive payment. For employees with 20 up to 30 years of service, that incentive payment would be $12,500. For employees with 30 plus years of service, that would be a $15,000 incentive payment. The goal of this is to get employees that have been with the county a long time. We thank them for their service to the county. But at this point, anybody that we can get off the payroll who's been a long-time earner will save taxpayer dollars. So our goal is to have people interested in the incentive apply by June 12th. That is the deadline for those interested to apply. We will be reviewing the applications. Department heads will review them. They need to be off of the county payroll by June 30th. The reason we picked June 30th, it's the exact 50% mark of the calendar year. So if we can have somebody off the calendar by June 30th, that leaves 50% of the savings of the budgeted amount for that position going forward as potential savings for the calendar year. And that, in a nutshell, is the incentive program. I'm happy to answer questions about it. We did provide some demographic data to support what we're talking about. While to leave retirement is not an option, years of service is. So just to put some numbers in context for everybody, we ran some charts. We have 55 years of age and 30 years of service is basically full max for Tier 4 members who are looking to separate. And while retirement's not an issue, with this incentive, it's certainly an indicator as to whether or not somebody can participate. So with that, 55 years of age, 30 years of service, there are 92 employees in Orange County government that meet that milestone right now. That is important. That's a real number of people that can theoretically retire right now without any sort of penalty to their job. Now, when I look at 10 plus years of age, which is a real qualifier for this program, 10 years of service, no age is not an issue. We have 1,200 employees that have 10 plus years of service in Orange County government, roughly half the workforce. If you break that number down for the CSEA, it's 876 employees in the CSEA. So there are quite a large number of employees to draw from that should be interested in these programs. And we think that it will be a very successful program as far as the incentive is concerned.
Thank you, Commissioner. That was actually the numbers I was looking for, how many were eligible. Question I've got, theoretically, could we get to a certain point where it doesn't make sense to go any further? Could we overdo it at some point?
Well, look, I think the one thing we're going to look at is see how the applications come in. Department heads are going to have to justify whether or not they can fulfill their mission for their department. With the incentive, they're going to also have to justify that there'll be taxpayer dollars saved as a result of approving the incentive. So these are things that are going to be looked at by each department as the requests come in.
Steve,
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
is there?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking to me. I'm sorry.
Okay, I'll go to you next, Steve. Is there a dollar figure that we're trying to hit? Is there a target number?
I think we all understand that we're in very untold times when dealing with the financial implications of the county right now. I've heard numbers that continue to fluctuate from the budget department, from the New York State Association of Counties, that range anywhere from $50 to $70 million deficit that we will have in the 2020 budget. That's a rather large number. So our goal is to try to hit as much as we can with these programs. We really want to take a bite out of the amount of money that we're going to be short this year, and we want to do it in a way that does not impact employees that does not need to be impacted. That don't need to be impacted.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, I just, in that vein that you spoke about earlier, a few minutes ago, Steve, with respect to savings, I mean, if the positions are entirely funded by state or federal dollars and we're not going to save anything, then you've left the latitude up to the commissioners and the department heads to make that decision, correct?
That is correct. Even when there are positions that are funded through other sources, there always still ends up being a county portion one way or the other, whether that's insurance or retirement. So there are savings that can be achieved one way or the other, and potential savings from a grant could be used for a different offset if we can save it from the personnel aspects.
Thank you.
I'd like to open up to questions from legislators on the committees. You can just say your last name first.
An Ethnostakis question.
Go ahead, Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Steve, thank you very much for all the work that you've put into this and the work that the executive has put into it with the unions trying to move this forward. So on this first proposal that we have here, just taking the raw numbers that I see, 1,200 workers and $88+ million salary, that's average of $74 $100,000 per year. So if we get half a year, it's something in the order of 35,000+ potential savings. That's assuming we're not hiring back anyone, because then the cost of the additional insurance on the hire back, even on a lower salary, will eat into much, if not all, of the potential savings. So my question to you is, I am assuming we're moving forward with this with no intent on hiring back people for the rest of the year on these positions, correct?
That is correct.
That way we would maximize the savings, correct?
That is correct. That's actually in the agreement with the CSEA. And Mr. Chairman, I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank the CSEA and all the other unions that we worked with to come up with these agreements. The President, Rose Lucas, their Director of Labor Relations, Vanessa Van Alstine, really worked well with us, along with all the other union presidents, the correction officers, the PBA, the superior officers, and the DA investigators, all to come to an agreement in a very quick manner. Because everybody knew how important this was to put through. Again, that 1,200 employees, that would be the maximum. We don't anticipate all 1,200 taking that. Again, anything we can save through these programs is going to be helpful for the county in the future as we prepare not only to finish the 2020 budget, but prepare the 2021 budget going forward.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Thank you again,
Lujan.
Steve.
Kevin Darian, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you, Mr. Gross. Again, this is really, really impressive. And obviously with everything that's going on right now, I mean, it's definitely the kind of thing we need to be considering. I noticed in Ulster County, they actually pushed forward a similar plan. Are you familiar with what they did? And is there any indication of how if their project was successful? Anything that we could be doing differently or adding to it?
Ulster County's plan was much different than ours. We've done 4 successful incentives in the past, all through financial incentivizing. We think money speaks the loudest to get people's attention. I don't believe Ulster County did that. They did something a little bit different. But what I can tell you today is that after this agenda item came out, I've had numerous phone calls from a lot of the neighboring counties. Dutchess County called me today. Rockland County called me today, all very interested in this program and how this is going to work. So we have experience in this program. We've done 4 of these in Orange County successfully, starting in 2014. Those programs were, starting in 2014. Those programs were very successful. We run them in Orange County in a positive manner, and we think that they're going to work again very well this year, given all the circumstances.
Excellent. And I totally agree. I mean, it's good to hear that other communities are reaching out. And hopefully this will set the tone for other businesses, us showing that this is what we should be treating our workers. So that's really, really great work. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Paduch.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, hi. Steve, you always have done a great job. I've been involved with every incentive we've had. I do have one question, though, and when I'm looking at these numbers, we're hoping for the 30 years plus more to be the ones taking advantage of the incentive, right? Because it'll bring back more money or save us more money. And in fact, the 20 plus has probably the most, right? So, I mean, if we get 30s and 20s taking advantage of this incentive, we're going to be saving the most. But my question really is, the next thing on our agenda is the voluntary temporary layoff. So could some of these potential people that are going to take the incentive take the furlough now and be laid off for a month and a half or whatever until June, and then just pick right up on their county additional money, right? Or am I wrong?
Yeah, so Chairman, what we're talking about right now is the voluntary separation incentive. So you would have to be off the payroll by June 30th if you're going to take the incentive and leave county employment. So I don't know if you're asking, can they take both and take advantage of both? Was that your question?
Yeah,
I don't
sort
think
of.
the timelines are going to line up for both.
No, okay. Because I'm just wondering if they took unemployment. I don't know when you're going to look to do that, but if they took unemployment now, that's saving us money as well, right? So we're looking to save as much as possible. And this incentive program has been great, and I hope this one's even better. So thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments?
Chairman DeGango.
Hey, Kathy.
Steve, thank you so much for all the work you did. My question is going to be that if you do get a lot of those 20 to 30, most of them are probably in higher positions. So are we calculating that if we actually have those people take this retirement incentive, are we actually going to be saving the amount from them taking that? Or are we going to be moving people who are lower than them in the job descriptions and moving people up to their positions at that higher rate, so that basically change what we could save? Or are we freezing those positions completely until next year as responded to legislative Agnestakis?
I think I got most of that. You were broke up a little choppy. But the one thing I would say is that at the end of the day, we really need to evaluate the positions as they come in. With the county exec's office, with the departments, Deputy County Executive Harry Poor is going to be very closely involved in this. And until we see who we get and what we get, it's going to be hard to determine whether we're going to be able to fill some of those positions. Even if we were to promote from within to a higher level position, chances are the lower level position may become vacated as a result of that action. So a lot of this is going to determine on the actual applications we get, what positions those applications represent, and our ability to continue the critical operations of the county with or without that function filled, and not necessarily with that position filled at such a higher rate of a 30-year employee as well. Did I answer your question for the most part? Okay.
Kulisek, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Jim.
Hello, Steve. How are you?
Hi, Chairman. How are you, Jim? How are you, sir?
I'm good. Is this the whole agreement, the verbiage and literature that we have here? Is this the agreement in its entirety, or is this a summary? Or
this document right here is the actual agreement.
Okay, you made a comment earlier that it was written in the agreement with the help of the CSA, or you were thanking the CSEA. But I read these agreements, and I'm just curious if this was a summary or not. This full agreement I have in my hand, correct?
This is the actual agreement. This is the signature page with the
yes, there's three. Okay, okay, very good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner, I do have one question going back to what I said earlier. Do you think we would get to a point where we're losing too many people? And if we did get to that point, I would think we'd opt to take advantage of the ones with the more years in, the 30 years and the 20 years rather than the 10s. Could we get to a point where we would pick and choose based on the saturation level?
Look, I think we're going to see what we get. Again, our experience over the past has been the maximum number of employees we had participate 126. That is our benchmark right now. We made it through that one fairly well. Yes, there was some brain drain in the county, but those are things we've learned some lessons on. And our goal is to see what we get and hopefully not make the decisions as we need to make them with respect to approvals. Our goal is to approve as many people as possible because the reality is retirement eligible employees can go whenever they want. We're trying to incentivize them so that we can either not fill the position in for a very long period of time and save those dollars for the taxpayers of the county.
Great. Worked before, he said. I think it'll work again.
Hoping so. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman.
Oh, sorry.
Was that Mike again?
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yep,
Might
go
be
ahead.
Lori.
Is this Lori?
This is Lori.
Okay,
Yes.
Go ahead, Lori.
Thank you. I just need a little clarification on the numbers because you were going back and forth. I'm looking at the one page of the document that has the two blue and white charts on it with 55-year-old, 30-plus years of service, and then 62 and 10-plus years of service. And you're saying 126 employees are eligible, but yet I'm seeing 150 and 92.
Lori,
so can you go back on that for me?
Sure, Lori. 126 are the actual number of employees who accepted and took the incentive in 2014 when we did it.
Okay.
Not eligible for this one. That's just for past reference as to the number of employees who actually participated and qualified and were incentivized a lot the first time we did it in 2014.
Okay. And then, so the potential of employees that qualify right now are the two charts that I'm seeing here, the 150 and the 92?
Actually, the other chart that has the 10 plus years of service is the total number of employees who completely qualify, because age is not an issue for this. It's just years of service. So 10 years of service, technically you could take advantage of this. So those are the number of employees with just pure age of service that you're looking at, the 10 plus years of service chart.
Okay, I'm trying to get to the 10 plus years of service. Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, Mike, did you have another question? too?
Yeah, yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. My other question is, if there's an overwhelming response to this incentive program, is it possible that we could use per diem workers so that we didn't have to pay benefits to some of the departments? I mean, is that in consideration as well, or that's not possible?
It really depends on the position we're talking about, Mike. So a lot of this is up in the air until we actually get the applications in and see who we get, what departments they work at, the varying positions that they hold. And as we look at that, we'll make those determinations to see if that makes sense. We have done things like that in the past. But per diem workers, if there's not a classification for per diem worker, we don't have a standardized per diem worker for every title in the county.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. That was just something I wanted to ask.
No problem.
Any other questions from Ways and Means Committee members? I know most of you were here when we did this prior. Janet or Joe, any questions?
No, thank you, Steve, Chairman. And Steve, just thank you for all the time and the work that you and your department have put into this. It's great.
Thank you.
Great job.
Thank you very much.
There aren't any more questions. I'd almost like to call a question.
Well, John, I just wanted to ask one more thing as
Oh,
Mike
sure.
Duke again. Steve, in regards, what was I was gonna ask you, is there, I don't see on here, I see June 30th. They must leave service by June 30th, but when do you have to know by? June 12th?
Yes, June 12th. It's that
June
bullet right
12th,
there.
okay.
Yeah,
At
and
5
just so
p.m.
everybody's
Okay,
aware, we're going to be putting out very clear fact sheets for employees and forms. They'll be going out tomorrow. Normally, we would wait for the full legislative body to vote before we put this information out. We're going to take a leap of faith today with the legislative committees voting on this and put the information out tomorrow so that we have more lead time for all the employees to know about these programs. The deadlines are coming up rather quick on both of them, so we want to get the information out as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you very much.
Hey, Steve,
Yes, sir.
is the state retirement system going to be able to react fast enough to complete this timetable?
Again, retirement's not a qualifier for this, so we don't necessarily care if you're retiring or not. But those timetables are relatively quick with the state retirement system. We have contact numbers and information for people who wish to reach out to them. My understanding is they can get that process within a 2 to 3 week period. And our deadline is June 30th, so we have over a month.
Okay, that's why I want to make sure that they could do the processing and so everybody is secure. Okay,
Right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chairman, one other thing, Jim Kulisek.
Go ahead, Jim.
I know a lot of the employees last time out, they had tax implications, and they don't have to take this lump sum as a taxable sum. Is that correct, Steve? They can put this into the deferred account?
That's absolutely true. Yes, we put qualifications in here. If anybody would like to, we could set them up with the deferred compensation carrier. It's Mass Mutual, and they will provide you assistance with putting the funds actually from the incentive or other funds into a deferred compensation account to help out with the taxation aspects right now.
Okay, because that would be quite a tax hit if you were to get $15,000 and on top of your taxable income now. A lot of people would be hesitant to take this offer. So, thank you.
You're welcome.
Good point.
Another
Yeah,
good
many
example,
people took. Yeah, many people took advantage of that last time.
Absolutely. A lot of people take advantage of that. Great program.
Yes.
Okay, anybody else? So I'd like to call a question. Kelly, can I get a roll call for the P&C committee first?
Sure. Benton,
Yes.
Fagione,
Yes.
Luhan,
Aye.
Riskevich,
Yes.
Sierra,
Aye.
DeGanga,
Yes.
Tortel,
Yes.
and Vero.
Absolutely, yes. Thank you.
Okay, 8 ayes.
Okay, Kelly, roll call for Ways and Means as well, please.
Nandestakis,
Yes.
Benelli,
Yes.
Hines,
Yes.
Kulisek,
Yes.
Menuda,
Yes.
Paduk,
Yes.
Sutherland,
Yes.
and Benton.
Yes.
8 ayes.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, excellent. Now I'd like to move on to item number B, a resolution creating a voluntary temporary layoff program for Orange County employees. Can I get a motion and a second for the P&C committee?
DeGanga,
So moved.
motion.
Kathy,
Second.
and who's the second
Luhan.
one? Kevin there.
Luhan.
Okay, Ways and Means, motion in the second, please.
Mike
Benelli,
Paduk, I'll
motion.
move it. Or I'll second.
Paduk and Benelli. Thank you. Steve?
Steve, again, you're on.
Okay, thanks, everybody. So, dovetailing on our conversation before about the financial concerns of the county and the situation we're all dealing with, we've been looking at new programs that we can put in place to save taxpayer dollars. One of the things that's been kicking around throughout the state, we've been doing a lot of research on, is a furlough program / temporary voluntary layoff program. It's something we'd like to move forward on, and what we have in front of you is a negotiated agreement. That would be this document, the one that has 4 signatures on the last page, 3 pages. Excuse me, I don't think I did that right. But the bottom line is this program is designed to allow employees to come off the payroll for a 1 or 2 month period. The mindset on that is that they can take advantage of benefits that are being put available to employees between the state and the federal government. Specifically, there is now pandemic unemployment compensation. Federal government has put forward as part of the CARES Act that provides an additional $600 per week to an individual who is eligible for that benefit. The regular unemployment benefits are up to $504 a week. So combined, you're talking about $1,104 a week for those that are eligible. From research that we've done, Karen Hoblo in the finance department has put together as well, helped us out with this. We've looked at some of the other counties and some of the benefits that are available. And according to the New York State Department of Labor, an employee who earns approximately $55,000 or less would in essence be made whole through this program through the state. And we have some information available for individuals to call the State Department of Labor and their website to go through that information if they'd like. Out of the county, I mentioned the $55,000 or less employees. There are currently 640 employees in Orange County that do meet that mark in our government as of right now. That's full and part-time. That represents over a 2-month period of June and July, a potential of $4.8 million for those employees. So if everybody's okay, I'd like to go through the terms of the voluntary temporary layoff program now.
Certainly.
This program will be available to certain eligible employees, and I'll get into the reason why in a little bit. But they're going to be available for June 1st through July 31st. Employees are able to take the voluntary layoff either as a 1-month period, either June or July, or both combined. That is their option. It's also the option of the department based on their needs and their staffing needs as well. So an employee also may will come back after they've taken their temporary layoff with no change in their assignment, their shift, their department, their seniority, or anything else related to their employment. Everything gets parked until they come right back. Employees who are put out on the temporary layoff may request to end it and come back to work early with a 7-day notice to us. We have excluded a few departments tied to either COVID response or emergency services responses. So right off the bat, we've eliminated the following departments from being able to participate in this program. And those are Valley View, the Health Department, Emergency Services, and Probation. And that is directly as a result of their response activities to COVID and general public health and safety. So department heads will have the full authority with respect to authorization for positions involved in this. Positions that are tied to public health, safety, and welfare will have we will be more comprehensively reviewed by the departments and have a greater likelihood that they may be turned down to participate based on their workload. Department heads do have full discretion with respect to the approval. Again, I mentioned they can be taken month-long increments, June, July, or July, or whatever the department can fulfill. Okay, all applicants are going to be due. Now, if you're interested in the month of June for the first layoff, voluntary temporary layoff session, your application will be due by May 27th at 5 p.m. The department head will get back to you by May 29th. It's a quick turnaround. We want to get the word out to everybody because these dates are around the corner. And that will allow the department head to get back to you by the 29th to make you aware of whether or not your application has been approved or not. For those that only want to go out for the month of June, their application is, the month of July, their application is due back June 15th, and they will be granted or not granted the ability to do it by June 19th. We have information available for the State Department of Labor, which is how you would apply. We're going to put all that information out to the employees. In the unlikely event that an employee is denied unemployment insurance, they can request to come back to work. They need to do this very quickly. If they've been somehow, for some reason, we don't foresee this happening, turned down for the unemployment insurance benefit, they need to let us know that with the documentation that they applied, that they were rejected. If there is an issue, we will try our best to make them whole. If it was through no fault of their own and we did everything right and they want to come back to work, let's say there was a 1-week gap, we will cover that 1-week gap. God forbid there's an issue. Health insurance. It is the responsibility of the individual to pay their current premium contribution that they pay toward their health insurances. So if they normally pay 12%, whatever the contract rate that they're currently paying will have to be continued by the individual. Whatever that percentage of their premium is, we will make arrangements for you to pay either on a biweekly or a monthly basis, but that will continue to be your responsibility as an employee. Same goes for other insurances. You might have, as an individual, you might have elective withdrawals from your paycheck, such as AFLAC or other policies that we make available. If you want to continue those policies, you're going to have to pay them directly as well. And we're going to provide you with all that information as an employee to get those payments where they need to go. And that is probably the most important thing about the temporary layoff that we want to make sure everybody's very clear on. And that is the New York State retirement system will not credit your time for retirement when you are on a furlough or a temporary layoff situation. So the 2 months that we're talking about right now, for anybody who takes advantage of this program, will not be counted as service credit toward your retirement. So to make this very simple, if you're planning on leaving in 30 years, your county career, you're now looking at 30 years and 2 months. So that's another important fact I want to make sure everybody's aware of. Deferred compensation and flex spending accounts as well will not be able to continue. You'll have to make those as well as an individual. Any leave accruals, the individual will not, as an employee, continue to earn leave accruals while they're on furlough, nor will they lose any. So any leave accruals that are in place will be parked, basically left on the shelf for you to come back and be there for you when you come back. The county's going to make all this information available to the union on a biweekly basis, and we're going to get the information out to everybody who's eligible by getting the word out through the electronic means, mail, and anything else we can do to get the word out to our employees. That's it in a nutshell. I know it's a lot to absorb. I'm ready to answer any questions you have. And we think this is a great program. This is the first time we're going to be doing something like this. We have looked at other counties across the state. A number of other counties are doing similar programs. I know Clinton County, Ontario County, Franklin County, Schoharie County, the city of Kingston, and many others are putting in furlough/temporary layoff programs right now as we speak.
Mr. Chairman, Lujan.
Go ahead, Kevin. Darren.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree. I think this sounds like a fantastic program. The only concern I do have is I've talked to a lot of community residents, for instance, some of them that are waiting 3-4 weeks now plus. They did qualify for they submitted their information. They were going to get a call back, and they're still waiting. They would normally qualify, and they still haven't been able to receive any money for unemployment. My concern again is how long will some of the individuals who take advantage of this? We don't know how long they're going to have to wait. A month or two without a salary could definitely be detrimental to some of these families, and so I just wanted to point that out. I'm sure that you're well aware of it, but I think it's something that for us to keep in mind as well. Otherwise, I fully support it. I think it's a fantastic idea.
Thank you, Legislator Lujan. We definitely are aware of that. We've talked to the State Department of Labor. They assure us that their online system is relatively pain-free as long as everything is entered correctly. A lot of times the problems happen when something is either entered slightly incorrectly and it creates a red flag and gets kicked out of the system for some reason. So with that, we've been in touch with the Regional Department of Labor. They're aware of what we're doing. And we'll do their best to process everything as quickly as they can. Well, when I'm 64, I hope to have that program in place. Thank you.
An agnostatus question?
Good, Michael.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Steve, again. I love this program. A couple of questions for you. The 640 that are potential that basically would break even, I think you said, is 55,000. I calculate around 57,000. The 640, I assume that is after we excluded the departments that we did. Is that correct?
That is correct. That does not take into consideration Valley View or the other departments.
Okay. So bear with me here. There'll be a payoff at the end. It's going to be a little lengthy, but let me try this. So on the first program that we're putting in place, if I assume that we get 100 participants, and again, the most we ever had was 126, I think, at the average, we would save about $3.5 million. I think the big payoff would be here if we can get a lot of people. So my question is at the end, this is voluntary. How come we have it as voluntary? Couldn't we have it as mandatory under these circumstances? That we were trying to get all 640 to participate, maybe on a scaling 200 or so every couple of months. And if we can get them all to participate over the second half of the year, 2 months each for the 640, it would be savings of close to $6 million or maybe twice as much as we get from the first program. Under voluntary, especially when they don't get the service with the county and the being scared about will they get their payments in time of unemployment, I worry that we just might not get that many people at all. What are your thoughts? How come it couldn't be mandatory versus voluntary?
So one of the things we're looking at right now is taking voluntary actions. We do not want to take involuntary actions at this point if we can help it. So our goal is to try to reduce the workforce through attrition between these two programs. When you're talking about a more permanent, whether it's a furlough or a layoff, you're now into civil service law and bump and retreat and retention issues that are going to come into being a factor with determining who the individuals are. It might be something we look at down the road, Mr. Anagostakis, but at this point, we think this is a first effort to see how we do. Give these programs a try. It's a 2-month period, 8 weeks. We can tweak it. If we want to do something going forward after that, we can revise it or throw it out, see what makes sense. Our goal is to give it a shot, see how it does, send up that trial balloon, see, hopefully it's real successful, and take it from there.
Okay, I appreciate that. I hope it is successful. I worry that it won't be on a voluntary basis. And again, don't get me wrong. On a mandatory basis, it would have no implication on the worker. I'm not implying anything negative on the worker. I'm just saying that we're in desperate times, and maybe we have to mandate that everyone for a 2-month period has to just step aside and get equally compensated from the feds and the state. But we'll give it a try, and I hope it works tremendously. Thank you again for your service. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Kevin Hines.
So, Steve,
Good, Kevin.
go ahead, Kevin.
Thank you. In answer to Mr. Anagnostakis, the federal program ends in July 31st, so that 600 would go away. That's why I think that's not workable, unless the feds extend that extra 600. Otherwise, the salaries would be a drastic loss to most of our workers. Secondly, I want to make sure I support the program, but I'm having trouble with the smell test. You're going to tell the state of New York that you have a job available for these people, but you're going to let them take unemployment. That, to me, I would like a legal opinion on that from either Sharon or Matt or Antoinette. Or if you tell me you've already vetted this with the governor's office and the state controller, just because some other county did it doesn't necessarily make it legal. And I'd hate to get stuck paying the worker and getting jammed up with the state with respect to unemployment. That's my first question. I have others, so I'll let you answer that first.
So Sharon Worthy-Spiegel has been very helpful. She signed the agreement with me. She's been obviously a wealth of information when it comes to this. One of the things I can tell you is that we checked with the State Department of Labor. Basically, their big issue is if the county doesn't contest it, they do not see an issue. What we're looking at is potentially avoiding having to do layoffs that would cause longer-term unemployment issues. So in many ways, it's a short-term aspect to hopefully avoid having to do something on a larger scale down the road.
Yeah, so I support it, but my fear is the federal government's going to say this is a fraud. Why should we pay $100 when you really have a job for these people? And
you got to understand, Legislator Hines,
to be on board here as well.
There's a lot of programs out there. There's a shared work program through the Department of Labor where they're encouraging people to basically, instead of laying individuals off, share the burden with the Department of Labor. So there are programs out there that are being sponsored by the Department of Labor. They're out there. They're being encouraged for the private sector as well as for government.
And the unions have agreed with this. We're not going to get a grievance from those that aren't allowed to participate. Do we have clarification on that?
The union signed off on the document. You see all their signatures are on the last page. They have
but I want to make sure there's no grievance from those that are not allowed to participate.
Part of the actual agreement is the fact that they can't grieve those aspects. So they're signed off. In fact, it was the union's idea, to be blunt with you, to eliminate those departments as a whole. So yes, it's there.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. And my other question is, can we justify that? Because I know the Commissioner of Health needs 133 contact tracers in order for us to reopen. And some of the people that are not working in their normal departments are working over at the 911 center. At least I was told that. If we need lay off these people, are we still allowed to hire contact tracers and say, here, we're going to furlough some people, but we got to hire other people in order to
my
reopen?
understanding of the contact tracers from talking to the health department is that is going to be handled through the state of New York, that the Orange County Health Department actually isn't doing that aspect. But we have the ability right now to move employees around. We've been doing that quite successfully since the pandemic started. We've had motor vehicle employees answering health calls, and we thank them, and social services employees answering call center calls. So everybody is kicked in as a team and doing what's necessary to support our operation.
Right, and I applaud that, but we're going to let them go away for 2 months while we might still need them.
Well, that's why
making phone calls. I just want to make sure we're okay, because in order to reopen, we have to have, by my calculation, 133 contact tracers.
I've talked to the health department, and I've been told directly from the health department that it's not an issue for Orange County right now.
That's because we're not open. But when we open, I think we need that. So the right now concerns me.
Fair enough. Points are duly noted, and I think
favor of the program. I just want to make sure it's legal, because to me, it almost sounds a bit fraudulent to tell the federal government that they have to pay our employees to stay home when we are ready, willing, and able to pay them, and we need them. That's the other part.
Well, again, I think the alternatives are what the federal government and the state look at, especially when they're pushing a shared work program, specifically so that individuals don't have to get laid off, basically can share the burden with the State Department of Labor.
Yeah, like I said, as long as it's legal, I'm on board. I just want to make sure all the lawyers are listening, that they're all okay with this. Thank you.
Mr. Hines, this is Antoinette Reed. I think the very purpose of the $600 that's coming from the federal through the state unemployment line is for this very purpose. When you look at it, you said we're ready, willing, and able. Well, we may need the person, just like small businesses and large businesses do, but you don't have the money to pay them. So we may be operating at a deficit, and I think that's the very purpose of this program, to give businesses and government a little breathing room so that they can, when they get their finances back in shape, they can rehire these people. So it's a temporary fix. We're trying it for 2 months so that we don't have to mandate layoffs going forward. We might have to, but at this point, we're going to try the temporary fix here, temporary layoffs. Mr. Gross has spoken to the State Department of Labor. They're on board. It's a program there that they're promoting, and the governor is promoting, and the federal government is offering. They put the cash on the table, and I think it's a good thing for the county to accept the program and move forward with it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, Lujan, a question.
Good, Kevin Derry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did have a question about also for smaller departments that might be only have a department head and maybe a few workers. Will they also qualify for these kinds of programs?
So look, other than the 4 departments that were mentioned, anybody can apply for it. So it's going to be really up to the department to determine whether they can fulfill their mission based on having individuals out.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Tautel with a question.
Go right ahead.
Okay. Commissioner Gross, just one question. How will this impact, have we figured out the numbers on our unemployment insurance and unemployment rates?
I don't really think that's a major issue, to be honest with you. At the end of the day, we're paying into unemployment insurance regardless. So really don't think it's much of an issue. We're going to definitely save it off the salaries.
Okay, I was wondering because this X amount of employees are furloughed, our unemployment insurance rate goes down.
I don't have all those numbers offhand, Lori. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you. If you could get those, that would be great.
Sure.
Thank you.
Chairman, Tom Fagione with some questions.
Go ahead, Tom.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Commissioner Gross. 2 questions. Number one, I just was trying to get the notes down quickly. What was the potential savings for the county for this program? Approximately, I think there was a number said.
4.8 million potential.
All right. And my other question is, what happens if the state gives us the green light to open up and reopen before the program ends end of July? What do we have in play for that?
Look, I think we've got a lot of options in play. Again, this is a 2-month period. We don't necessarily see the light switch being flipped on and everybody coming back in a 1-day period. So we think we have the flexibility within this time frame to do what we need to do.
Commissioner, thank you. I appreciate that. No more questions, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Commissioner, I just had a comment too. I was contacted by a couple of Orange County employees, and they were very in favor of this. And both of them had young children. They were concerned about what was going to happen. Well, school is already out. It's been out since March. But with the summer camps, they would go to camps possibly, and they'd be taking up part of the day there. Without these camps being open and available, now they get into a daycare situation, which may not be able to have their children even to get into. So they said we could stay home a couple of months, save the county money, and be with our children. I mean, that could be a huge money saver for them and the county as well at the same time. it solves a couple of problems. I'm
Yeah,
not saying
thanks,
there's a
Chairman.
lot of these people, but there certainly are a few who would gladly stay home a couple of months in, shall we say, not knowing what the camps are gonna be doing this summer. And I kind of think the camps won't be open.
Those are very fair points, and that was part of our factoring into the decision process was these kind of issues. Individuals that have daycare, summer camp, children, a senior, a parent at home that they're taking care of, provides the employees with a little bit more flexibility as well as helping our bottom dollar, our bottom line.
Any concern too for the employees about being out in the public, back at work? Are they more susceptible as if they were just quarantining?
Yep.
Other questions?
Chairman Stiganga?
Go ahead, Kathy.
All right, Steve, you had said something earlier about if people somehow got denied with the unemployment and that you've spoken to someone up there. But right now, there's probably a 6 to 8 week lag on people getting their unemployment. I know the governor keeps saying, oh, don't worry about it. You'll get paid from the get-go. But if they're telling you they're on point, they are not on point. There is absolutely no way to get a hold of them. They hang up on you, they disconnect. Even when your claim has gone through and so forth, it's still taking weeks and weeks. I have a lot of businesses and constituents who have been contacting about that. So if we are agreeing that we would pay to make the difference up for someone who decided to take the layoff and then come back because they're not getting the money that they need, how could that affect us if they don't get a decision in for 3 or 4 weeks and then all of a sudden they want to come back? Do we have to make up that difference for that 3 or 4 weeks, or are we only agreeing to 1 week of that pay?
So we're going to look at it on a case-by-case basis. Hopefully that's not an issue. We understand the issues with the time frame. I've seen the same reports that you have. The little bit of information I can tell you is that I've been told if you apply online and you put all the information in correctly, it's a much more seamless process. And I've heard that from the Department of Labor directly. So again, our goal is to look at all these things on a piece by piece. As they come in, we're hoping these aren't issues. The county is not planning on contesting any claims, which is a big issue with respect to approval or denial.
I'm just concerned because if you talk to Senator Skoufis's office or to any of our assembly or regular senators, they are getting an influx of phone calls about problems with the unemployment.
We've all heard the same concerns. We're in a bit of a catch-22 because we need to rely on the other state agencies to fulfill their roles in this. And that's what the Department of Labor does. So any information we have, we're going to send it up to the Department of Labor directly from the county. And hopefully we can grease the wheels a little bit that way.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Chairman Menudo, when you have a chance.
Go ahead, Joe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank Commissioner Gross and all the experts we have on this topic. I would like to echo the concerns raised by Legislator Hines with respect to the call program. This tracing program is available. It is out there. I don't want to shorten our staff by going to furlough when they could simply be doing that task, which is going to go to someone. I don't know how many within the county would actually entertain that or be involved in that, but I don't want to close the door on that either. So if that could please be considered under part of this, I'd appreciate it.
Absolutely. We'll keep that in consideration. As I mentioned before, you might want to bring this up in the health committee at some point, but I've been told through the health commissioner's office that this is not going to be handled as far as contract tracers being hired through the county level.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, Lujan?
Go ahead, Kevin Derry.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo what Mr. Gross said. My understanding also was that this would be a state-run program. So while it might make sense to offer this as an option for county employees that would like to do that, Probably it seems likely that if it's running through the state, we wouldn't be able to benefit from it. Also, I don't necessarily know that all county employees would want to necessarily do this, that kind of work. I mean, it's definitely going to have its own challenges in and of itself.
That we can only control what we can control.
Absolutely.
Sorry, I didn't catch that.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Joel Sierra.
Go ahead, Joel.
Quickly, for those numbers that we were talking to, and I'm not sure if Steve can answer this question or not, or if we have somebody on budget on the meeting. The $400 million, the $4 million, they were the savings. Is that factoring in the funded but unfilled positions, the several hundred positions that the county has in the budget? Does that factor the savings in for those positions?
Legislator Sierra, the $4 million that we're referencing are actual people in those positions that would be furloughed.
So what you're saying is that
this has nothing to do with vacant positions. This is actual bodies, people
Correct.
in positions right now that would be taking a 1 or 2 month voluntary leave.
I understand, but does yourself or does the budget department have a number on those vacant positions that we funded but are not filled?
So this has nothing to.
I know it has nothing to do with it. Did we factor in how much savings that's going to be?
Honestly, I can't. Well, I'm listening to you right now. Can't really put one to the other right now, to be honest with you. We're talking about an incentive program, so I can't figure out why positions. I don't really know what your request is. What you're asking me, to be honest with you. I mean, is budget on the line? Maybe they can answer it better.
Is anybody from budget on the line?
I think you're talking about two entirely separate items.
Yes,
anyway.
they are separate items. They are separate items, but I understand that in this year's budget, there were several hundred positions that were funded by the budget but not filled. I know Paducah has constantly mentioned these funded but unfilled positions. Have we eliminated those positions? Has anybody have a savings on how much we're saving for those funded but unfilled positions?
This is Debbie from the Budget Department. If you'd like, I can just. Can you hear me?
Go ahead, Debbie. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, we keep track of those vacant positions and we track the savings to that each year. Don't forget though that most departments who had vacant positions, there was already a vacancy factor established in the operating budget for those vacancies.
Okay, I understand that, but did that vacancy factor change? And did you consider that vacancy factor already as far as savings for where we are today with the budget?
We do consider that we are factoring that in, but it has nothing to do with this incentive. This would be above and beyond that savings.
I understand that they're two separate items, and I'm not sure if this is the appropriate place to ask the question, but I understand it too. I'm in favor of the voluntary furloughs, but what I'm saying is that I want to get a number on the vacancy savings that we have on those positions, and I'm not sure if this is the place to make the request, but we have several hundred positions in the budget currently, and they're not filled. They're funded but not filled.
Okay. Yeah, Joel, the time to do that is October with the 2021 budget review, proposed county executive budget review.
Why would we wait till October if we're talking about furloughing people now and there's hundreds of positions in the budget that are not filled?
Because right now it's the prerogative of the county executive to fill or not fill those positions at his wish anytime he wants to.
I could get you some updated numbers on that though.
If you could, because we're talking about voluntarily laying people off, or we if the program doesn't work, we might have to lay people off. But we have hundreds of positions that are in the budget that are not filled currently.
Yes,
you
and I
can get
wouldn't,
me-
I wouldn't
get me that
anticipate the county executive filling them at all unless it's really an emergency and really necessary.
I understand that, but that's not my question. I'm not questioning if the positions are getting filled. My question is, there's hundreds of positions in the budget currently, and where are we standing with those positions?
It was
And the
15
savings.
million, Joel. It was 15 million originally with his opportunity to fill whatever he wants.
So Mike, that's what I'm saying, Mike. We've been talking about this. We talked about this last year's budget, and I'd hate to, beat a dead horse, but we have 15 million in the budget right now.
Okay, but it was
Whatever
15
it is.
million. That was a gross number. You need to take off that vacancy factor. And
What is that vacancy? Can you get us some numbers? I'm not saying for it right now, but if you
Okay.
can send us an email for that vacancy factor.
I
Because
will get you some.
If we're talking about $50 million at a savings of, 4 million with this resolution, and what we were talking about, 10 million with the last resolution, was that the right number? Or I'm trying to follow the agenda here, but I'm having a hard time on my laptop. Either way, if you can get me that number, I know you don't need to get it right now, but if you can get that number on the projected savings for the funded but unfilled positions in the 2020 budget. Thank you.
I will update that for you.
And she's the best at it, so.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman and Agnostakis?
go ahead, Mike.
Thank you. Just to add a little color as to what was just being asked. So these positions that were funded but not filled in the budget, so there's a vacancy factor against it that's already has to be taken out of that if it's 15 million that it was. And let's just say, I'm just picking a number, say the vacancy factor was 5 million worth and the end result was 10 million of funded unfilled positions. Assuming the county executive doesn't fill those positions, I agree with Chairman Benton, unless there's a big emergency, I don't think he would. That means that there would be an additional 10 million of savings at the end of the year that was in the budget that we didn't use. That's going to flow through to help cover some of these 50, 60, 70 million of budget deficit that we're going to encounter. That's all that means. So I hope that helps a little bit.
Like it does every
Absolutely
year.
correct, Mr. Anagnostakis. Thank you. Absolutely correct.
I agree with Mike on that.
Well, we're trying to find all the tools in our toolbox right now and helping out the county executive with not just this year's budget, but also 2021 budget. We're going to be in the same position.
Mr. Chairman, just a comment. That's what
Sure, go
happens
ahead.
that's what happens every year. All the monies that come back, whether they're, and most of it is the funded but unfilled positions, supplements our next year's budget, which is what we've talked about year after year. So there's nothing changing here. It's just whatever the county executive decides to do, and I'm sure he won't be filling them as well. He's going to promote that 10 million. I think the vacancy factor was 9 million. Mike, you were pretty close. I don't have that paperwork in front of me, but from working with Debbie, I thought it was 9 million maybe would be left. So whatever it is, it's going to help us. So I just wanted to point out that that's something that happens every year, Joel. So, it'll, I'm sure it's taken into consideration. Thank you.
Hey, this is Joel Sierra. I just wanted to touch base on what Menuda was saying earlier and what Kevin Hines was saying. I own a private business now, and I speak to businesses all over Middletown, all over the county, and everyone who's laid off staff and got these SBA loans are now having issues getting their staff back. Businesses that have gotten the SBA loans are now trying to get the employees back, and they're making, I've heard several legislators talk about this, but they're making more money on unemployment than actually working. So, and we're talking about the private sector here. We're not talking about the public sector, which is a different work ethic, to be honest with you. But that being said, what is our plan when you give everybody the summer off? How are we going to get everybody back to their jobs when you give them the summer off and you pay them to be off? How do we have a reopening plan for that?
Happy to comment on that. This agreement with the CSEA is for a defined period. The agreement ends July 31st. It cannot go beyond that. Not to mention the individuals that take the voluntary temporary layoff do not get retirement service credit. Those are both issues. So we have thought about that, and we have factors in place to not have it an open-ended program, but to, in essence, have it as an 8-week temporary trial program and see how it goes.
Yep, and Joel, just to touch on the private industry right now, I'm not the expert, but once these employees are offered employment again, they have a choice to either take that employment or lose their unemployment. Is that right?
It's a factor.
Yep. I
Chairman,
understand some
that
people are
is,
making more
that
money
is
on unemployment, but once that job is reoffered to them, it's available. Like they always ask the question, have you looked to work this week? Have you found work this week? Well, here they have. Now they opt not to take it because they're making more on unemployment. They jeopardize losing that unemployment, of course.
Now, what about what's the follow up to that?
Well, I'm not really
what's-
concerned about the private sector, the public, the private sector businesses. I'm concerned about Orange County right now.
No, I understand that. What I'm telling you is that if they're having a problem in the private sector where you can fire someone immediately, I know there's a grievance process. There's when you're part of a CSEA union, or if you're part of a union in the public sector, I believe it's harder to combat this issue than you would in a private business. Is my point.
Yep, they're different. And unions have backed all this already.
Okay, no problem.
Mr. Sierra, this is Antoinette Reed. And just so you know, presently under the federal legislation, the extra $600 is only available through July 31st. So that extra $600 that people on unemployment will or should be receiving is set to expire on July 31st.
Correct.
So that as a result, the weekly maximum amount you would get on unemployment would be $504 per week.
Antoinette, question, Mr. Chairman, Lujan.
Kevin Darren.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I don't know if you have this information, but being that you just quoted that, I was curious, what about those individuals like back pay? Do we know if people who haven't been getting any pay for the last 5-6 weeks, whether or not they'll be getting the 600 for all the weeks that they missed as well, or they just won't be included in that?
I really can't answer that because it's
No
a
worries.
general question, and
Fine.
I'm not that familiar with Department of Labor.
That's fine. I just wanted to ask in case you might know. Thank you.
Now, any other questions or comments? In that case, I'd like to call a question on item number B. Kelly, can you get a roll call on that, please?
Ben? Ben?
Yes.
Fagione?
Yes.
Lujan?
Aye.
Riskevich?
Yes.
Sierra?
Aye.
Stiganga?
yes,
Total?
Yes.
Vero?
Yes, absolutely.
8 ayes.
Okay, Kelly, Ways and Means members, roll call, please.
Anagnestakis?
Yes.
Benelli?
Yes.
Hines?
Yes.
Kulisek?
Yes.
Menuda?
Yes.
Paduk?
Yes.
Sutherland?
Yes.
And Ben?
Yes.
8 ayes.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, that clears our desk for now. I want to thank everybody for coming in. Steve, I want to thank you for everything you and your department did to get ready. I also want to remind everybody that we've got a special meeting Thursday. Is that at 5:15? To vote on this.
4:30.
4:30.
4:30, okay. So that's an important meeting. I hope everybody's there for that as well. And I just need a motion to adjourn in a second for a P&C.
Motion.
or you
Luhan.
can't go home.
Second.
Okay, Kathy? Who was the first one?
Luhan.
Okay, Kevin Darian.
And also a motion to adjourn for Ways and Means and a second, please.
So moved. Duke, second.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Again,
Thank
thank
you.
you, ladies, for all you do in the office and helping us with backup.
Thank you, everybody. We'll provide you updates on how the programs go.
Okay, great. Thank you for your
Thank
time.
you,
Please
Steve.
do.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Steve.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Have a good day.
Kelly, I have a quick question. Are we supposed